Hi, everyone. It's Don, and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, we finally got the instructions for taking test cruises from the CDC, and it kind of makes you question a few things. One, how do they have the authority to do some of the things in here? Also, why not just come out and say you can only do vaccinated cruises? Because the list here just keeps going on and on and on. So I don't want to get into the whole details about this list. It's quite long, but basically we know a few things right off the bat. They have to have all the signed authorities from the ports, medical evacuations, things like that, that they would need to do in case something happens. They need to have, hospitalizations. Um, they need to have areas to put people if they are tested positive and need to quarantine. All that stuff, that's a given. We know those kind of things are there. We know sanitation. They have to provide certain amount of sanitation, hand washing. They have to have everybody wear masks. They have to social distance people. They have to have everybody washing their hands and sanitizing their hands as often as possible. Those are all givens. But if these cruise lines decide that they're not going to go the vaccinated route, as you know, we have a couple states in the United States that have outlawed and banned getting passports, kind of thing, a vaccinated passports, or asking people if they've been vaccinated to participate in things. However, I'll do a video on that because there's a lot of lawyers out there saying that, yeah, you can say that, but those don't really affect companies that are outside of Florida, outside, registered in other countries. So we'll do a video on that upcoming. But in this one, I just want to go over some of the highlights of why it makes it a lot harder if the cruise lines can't just say, okay, vaccinated passengers, vaccinated crew, let's start sailing. So the first one that comes up, let me bring it up here for you. All volunteer passengers must be informed in writing that they are participating in a simulation of a health and safety protocols that are unproven and untested in the United States for the purpose of simulated a cruise ship voyage, and that sailing during a pandemic is inherently risky activity. At the cruise ship operator's discretion, this notification, it can be by email, it can be in letter form, it can be a link to the CDC's webpage on advisory on travel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But basically, they're telling you you have to get signed permission from people to get on the cruise. The cruise ship operator has to ensure also that all volunteer passengers have either been proof of fully vaccinated against COVID-19 by the Food and Drug Administration or the World Health Organization vaccine. If not fully vaccinated, a written documentation from a healthcare provider or self-certified, you can write your own letter saying that this is a true statement, that the volunteer passenger has no medical conditions that would place the volunteer at high risk for severe COVID-19 as determined through the CDC guidance. So basically, if you have cancer, if you're overweight, if you have diabetes, if you're of a certain age, all those things would put you in that high risk. And it doesn't. So my problem with some of this is that what happens now? So you go on the cruise, you're basically, how do you get insurance for taking this cruise? Like you're basically saying that you're taking a high risk volunteer cruise, and you're signing that you're giving basically away your medical in a way. What insurance company, if you're going to go to them after signing something saying you're participating in something that's inherently risky to your health, is going to cover you if you come down with COVID and end up in the hospital or any kind of severe reaction? I don't think they're going to cover you. It's kind of like saying, to your auto insurance company that, Yeah, I signed this piece of paper saying I'm driving a car that's not roadworthy, and then the tire comes off and you crash, and you're expecting to get paid your insurance. They're not going to do it. I kind of think that's the same thing here. Good luck getting insurance on that. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're asked to be one of these volunteers. Now, as far as the length of these, they have to be between 2 and 7 days and must have at least one overnight stay. The CDC is recommending a minimum of 3 nights with 2 overnight stays. And the simulated voyages do not have to take into account everything in one sailing. You can do one simulated voyage to do your health protocols for food service. You could do another sailing on the same ship, mind you, for your evacuation procedures, and then another sailing for your entertainment venues, all that. It does not have to be all at once. So that is, something that the cruise lines are going to have to do. To me, if you're going to do it, you might as well try and do it all at the same time and get it over with in one shot. Now, before you can even do these test cruises, you have to apply for these test cruises 30 days in advance. Now, they're saying that they will reply within 5 days, yes or no, whether you can do the simulated voyage based on all the things that you have in there. But keep in mind, you have to be green or orange according to the CDC's crew guidelines in order to be able to do these simulated voyages, which means you cannot have any crew on board within 14 days that haven't been isolated. You can have no cases of COVID or sickness on board. So it's going to take basically those 30 days to go through there anyway. And that's only to take the cruise. And if you want to come into the country, you have to give notice 28 days. So any ships that are currently not in the US, currently sailing and reporting to the CDC, have another 28 days to do that before they can even apply for the test cruises. Again, you see the timeline extending and extending. So you may ask, what are the things that they have to show the CDC in this simulated voyage? So they have to show embarkation, disembarkation procedures as approved by the US port and local health authorities as part of the cruise ship operators Phase 2A agreements, including procedures for terminal check-in. Onboard activities, including seating and meal service at dining and entertainment venues, medical evacuation procedures, transfer of symptomatic passengers or crew, or those who test positive for the virus from cabins to isolation rooms, onboard and shoreside isolation and quarantine, as per the terms of the cruise ship operators Phase 2A agreements, of at least 5% of all passengers and non-essential crew. Recreational activities that the cruise ship operator intends to offer as part of any restricted passenger voyage, including casinos, spa services, fitness classes, gymnasiums, dance classes, you name it, all those sort of and venues on that you would, game shows, all those have to be shown if you're going to be offering them. And so you can't just say everybody into the theater, show one show and say, look, we social distance everybody. You would have to show all the different areas that you're going to be offering. You can't just say, okay, we showed you one entertainment venue and that is it. It's covered. You have to show everything that you want to open. So next thing is out there is they also say during this, now, one of the things that people love is buffets, and we know things will be changing on a cruise ship of the buffet service and that. And you're wondering what that's going to be like. Well, gone are a few things like self serve ice cream, your self serve drink options. You know how you used to have your refill cup and you could just go up and fill it up and leave and take off? All that's going to be closed. It's official. The CDC is now requiring them to eliminate any self-serve food or drink options such as buffet, salad bars, and drink stations. The CDC also requires social distancing in all venues aboard and is recommending cruise lines provide alternative meal service options such as pre-packaged grab-and-go meals for consumptions on the open decks or in individual cabins to minimize risk associated with congregate indoor dining. So yeah, instead of going up on the top deck and getting a pizza and a hamburger and that, they want you to basically go to your corner store and pick up a prepackaged sandwich. That doesn't sound too appetizing to me. It really doesn't. I don't know about you. That does not sound like a fun cruise to me. And remember when it said 5% of the crew or passengers have to be shown that they can be isolated and that. So you don't know if you're going to be one of those people. It's going to be randomly choiced. I imagine they will try and do it mostly with crew if they can, but expect some passengers to get involved in this. And so your entire test cruise with them, you could be put into a cabin isolation room and you're there for all the entire simulated voyage. You could be on a shore excursion and they have to put you in a hotel for 2 days while they're in that port as part of the procedures for shore excursions and things like that. So let's take a look at what they're looking at when you're talking shore excursions. Port of call shore excursions, if any, are planned during the restricted passenger voyage. So if you're not going to if you're just going to go out to sea and come back, you're fine. But this does include private islands as well. So if you're going to stop even at a private island, that counts as a shore excursion. So the following measures will be observed on port of call shore excursions. Self-guided or independent exploration by passengers during port stops must be prohibited. So you're not going to be allowed off the ship. Now, we just saw that Norwegian said when you go on one of their cruises, you're not going to be stuck only doing Norwegian cruise line authorized port excursion. You're going to be able to get off and walk around at the port. They've come up with agreements to the countries they're going. So this is for the test cruises. Now, will the CDC say they have to do the same thing for any cruise leaving the United States? More on that a little bit later. Shore excursions must only include passengers and crew from the same ship. Cruise ship operator must ensure all shore excursion tour companies facilitate social distancing, mask wearing, and other COVID public health measures throughout the tour. The cruise ship operator must have protocols for managing persons with COVID and close contacts in all foreign ports of call at a minimum. The protocol must include disembarkation and housing of persons with suspected or confirmed COVID needing shore-based hospital care and their travel companions for the duration of their isolation and quarantine period. Commercial repatriation of US-based persons with COVID-19 in close contact only after meeting criteria to end the isolation and quarantine as per the CDC guidance. For commercial repatriation of a foreign-based person with COVID-19 in close contact, cruise ship operators must consult with all relevant public health authorities. So again, you have to have the health things. We kind of knew that was going to be in place. The big thing for me here is them saying that you cannot, self-guided or independent cruises. I like, will that continue on to the very next one? I don't know. Will that mean that when they do start sailing with passengers, you're going to have to do the same thing, no matter what Norwegian Cruise Line has offered passengers? We're not sure at this time. Another thing they also mentioned for shore excursions, even on the private islands, they have to follow certain criteria. And one of those things is you still have to social distance, wear your mask, and the same dining regulations take effect on the private islands. So does this mean when you're walking out on the beach, they're going to force you to wear a mask on the island? I don't know. Also, how can the CDC force a foreign-owned business how to operate on a foreign island? Do they even have the authority to do that? I don't know. I really don't know if they have the authority to do that. But the CDC has all these. You have to collect your data daily. You have to turn it into the CDC on a daily basis. Anybody participating, including crew, port, anybody in contact with that simulated voyage passengers, all their information has to be kept on file for the CDC, that they can ask for that information at any given time, during and after the cruise. So if you're uncomfortable with your own public information being given out to places like the CDC, a test cruise is probably not for you because you're signing over that right to be able to do it. So you can see the hoops that they still have to jump to get in through all the, basically saying, all these things you have to do, the test cruises, private island restrictions, all these things. But you can bypass it all if you offer vaccinated cruises. And so, will that be the big thing that now becomes the cruise line and the states fighting? Where 2 weeks ago it was the states fighting for the survival of the cruise ship industry, and now they could be the ones holding the cruise state industry back. It's funny how it can flip flop just like that. One last thing that they did come out and say as well, for any of you I guess they're getting a lot of people commenting and calling them up and saying, hey, what are you doing about the Passenger Vessel Safety Act? The act that restricts cruise ships from sailing from one U.S. port to another U.S. port without having any foreign stops in between, which basically eliminates the chance for sailings to Alaska until Canada allows cruise ships back in, which as of right now, that's not happening until at least March of next year. They came out with a statement saying, simulated voyages, Vessel Safety Act, cruise ship operators are advised that the CDC has no responsibility for enforcing requirements related to the Passenger Vessel Safety Act and no authority to waive these statutory requirements. So I think they were getting a lot of comments saying, hey, what are you doing about that? Alaska needs help. Why are you holding Alaska back? And now they're trying to say, well, it's not us holding Alaska back. It's the Passenger Vessel Safety Act. Don't blame us. We have this guidance on how to start your cruising. You can start your cruising once you do these things, and then you can sail to Alaska, but you still have to get by the Passenger Vessel Safety Act. So yeah, a lot of things. The big one for me is the signing off on that you are agreeing to an inherently possibly dangerous cruise. And then if by chance something does happen on the cruise, well, what's going to happen? Is the cruise line going to cover you for everything? Is your insurance going to kick in? Are you going to get denied? That's a big one for me. That's one I'm very skeptical of because I have obviously underlying conditions. I'm not fully vaccinated yet. I'm only one dose. My second dose isn't until August sometime. So if I was to volunteer, who knows? Not to mention how long it's going to take to line up volunteers. They have to have 10% of the capacity of the ship. So if the ship is, say, an Oasis class that can hold 6,500 people, they have to have a minimum of 650 passengers for these test cruises. And then 5% of those 650 are going to have to be isolated and quarantined at some point. Plus it's not going to be a regular cruise. I would still like to do it to help the cruise industry get started. But that whole signing off and possible no insurance does have me at questioning it completely. As far as what the actual state can do to keep cruise lines from asking for that passport, I'm going to do a video on that, and they may not even have the authority to do so. So we'll talk about that in a future video. In the meantime, let me know what you guys think about this guidance. Obviously, vaccinated cruises are much faster for the cruise lines to bypass everything here. Everything on this list. You just jump right to passenger cruising. So the cruise lines would love to do that. So they're probably looking into the legality of the no vaccine passport issues as we speak. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Till next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.